And that's why I just don't get this car. It doesn't add up. Don't mind me, I'm trying to make sense of this car, but to be honest, I'm struggling. You see, Suzuki has become well known for making cars that have an entertaining drive without battering your wallet, and the Swift Sport has been a great example of this, but the new car has left me scratching my head. At first glance, it looks as if nothing's changed, but come to the rear and you'll find this. That's right, this car is a hybrid. Well, it's not really, it's a mild hybrid. Now, whilst I commend Suzuki for making their little sporty hatchback more eco-friendly, I do have to question the logic behind this car, because this is slower compared to the non-hybrid model, but it is more expensive. Now, I appreciate that mild hybrid technology will of course bump up the price of a car, but I still think at £21,570 this is a bit expensive. As well as a shiny new badge at the rear, at the front we have a new engine. Well, kind of new. It's still the same turbocharged 4-cylinder 1.4 litre petrol used before, but now the engine code is K14D and not K14C. This engine does of course use the 48 volt mild hybrid system to give you better fuel economy and lower CO2 emissions. This system uses something called an integrated starter generator, which acts as a starter motor but also as a generator for the 48 volt battery and the 48 volt converter located underneath the front seats. Now, this system does actually give the Swift Sport a little bit more torque, which sounds fantastic for performance, but I'm afraid I bring bad news. That's because this car will take a full second longer to hit 62 miles per hour. In fact, it will take a rather yawn-inducing 9.1 seconds. I need a nap now. This isn't very comfortable. Does this mean the Swift Sport has lost its spark? Thankfully, no. In fact, this car is just as sprightly to drive as the non-hybrid model, and I think you'd have to drive both cars back to back to really notice any kind of difference, and even then you may struggle. Of course, as you would expect, the mild hybrid system has added extra weight to this car. In fact, it is 55 kilograms, so this car is now over a ton and not under a ton. The old car weighed 970 kilograms, whereas this is tipping the scales at 1,025. So the overall weight has increased by 55 kilograms. Not that much, although Suzuki does state that the main component of this mild hybrid system weighs 15 kilograms, so not really too sure what's going on there. But anyway, let's not get bogged down too much in regard to the weight. To be honest, you'll probably be having too much fun to care, even though this car is less powerful like I mentioned earlier. The old car offered 140 horsepower, whereas this car offers 129. Okay, I know it's not a massive sacrifice. However, on the plus side, this car offers 235 newton meters of torque, which is, wait for it, 5 newton meters than before. The old car, of course, had 230. Now, that extra eeny-weeny bit of torque is thanks to the integrated starter generator I mentioned earlier, and in fact, this car has more torque available from lower down in the rev range. So the old car would start to get going about 2,500 revs. This car, on the other hand, will get going at 2,000 revs, so you get a bit more torque lower down in the rev range, which can only be a good thing. And that kind of makes you wonder why this car is a little bit slower to 62 miles per hour. I know it's only 1 second, but that's 1 second closer to 10 seconds, and yes, that isn't particularly fast at all, is it? Oh, come on, Mr. Focus Man. But boring, we're gonna go left. Now, that's enough numbers. Let's talk about the most important aspect of this car, the driving experience. A car like this needs to tick the following boxes. It needs to be exciting, involving and engaging. And just like the non-hybrid model, I would argue it does tick those boxes. The driving sensation is very similar to the non-hybrid model, and as I said earlier, I think you'd struggle to really find a massive difference driving the two cars back to back. Of course, this car does have regenerative braking, so when you lift off the accelerator, like now, you have a battery icon come up, and you also feel a soft regenerative braking. It's not really strong. It feels more like a gentle pull than a vigorous tug. In case you're wondering, you can't change the strength of the regeneration like you can in some other hybrid or mild hybrid cars, nor can you turn it off. So if you don't want to have the regenerative braking on, well, tough luck, you have to have it. There's also no driving mode, so although this car is a bit more sophisticated and of course more expensive than its predecessors, it's still relatively basic in regards to the driving sensation, which is by no means a bad thing. Some modern cars can feel a little bit too complicated, dare I say a little bit over-engineered. This car, on the other hand, still feels relatively simple. Okay, I've got more technology in here, got more kit, which is just as well given the asking price, but it hasn't strayed too far away from the Swift Sport DNA of old. Yes, I know this has got the mild hybrid system, and of course it's now turbocharged, but that's simply to keep the car up to date with modern times and of course make it future proof. It's no secret that more and more cars will become electrified in some shape or form, whether that's a mild hybrid system like this, a proper hybrid, a plug-in hybrid, or of course fully electric. Apart from the regenerative braking, I can't really think of much different in regards to the driving sensation, and that isn't necessarily a bad thing. And of course, it's still a hoot to throw about. I said this car was chuckable when I last drove it, and that statement still stands. It's so fun to throw about in the corners with gay abandon, and it will thank you for it. Although this car is on slightly skinny tyres, there's a good amount of grip which helps to inspire confidence. The steering is well weighted, the brakes are responsive, and the car handles very, very well. Yes, there is a little bit of body roll, but not really enough to complain about. I do have one complaint though, and that's in regard to the driving position. It's simply too high. The standard car wasn't exactly low slung, but because this car has got the 48 volt battery and converter nestled under the front seats, it means that the driver's seat is now just that little bit higher, and it really doesn't feel sporty. I wouldn't go so far to say it feels like an SUV, but I would definitely want it to be a fair bit lower. Let's talk about the ride, because of course that is an important part of a hatchback. The ride, as you would expect, is firmer than your standard Swift, of course, but it has to be to give better handling in the corners. Yes, the seats may be perched a bit too high for my liking, but they do offer good support. They're pretty comfortable, although I'd say if you're a bit more broader, you may find the bolstering to be a bit too snug. I'm a relatively slim chap, and I feel pretty snug in this. I feel pretty well supported. But yes, if you were a larger person, you may find these seats to be a bit too slim. They do hold you in place well though. This car loves to scamper through the corners. It's like an excitable terrier running after a tennis ball. Ruff, ruff, let me at it, let me at it. Sounded a bit like Tommy Cooper. Don't know what happened there. I'm not the world's biggest fan of this gear change. It does feel a tad notchy and it's not the slickest. And I still maintain that the previous generation of the Swift Sport did have a nicer gear change, although Suzuki does state this gear change is shorter. It may be shorter, but it doesn't feel any nicer. Now let's touch upon that mild hybrid system once more. Of course it gives you added fuel economy, but I'm afraid the numbers don't quite add up. That's because the old car, the non-hybrid, that offered 50.4 mpg on a combined run, whereas this offers 50.1. Now you don't need a degree in mathematics to realise that is less. Now to be fair, the old car was tested using the NEDC method of testing, the old way, whereas this car was tested using the WLTP, the new, more realistic and accurate method. So okay, that makes more sense. If you apply WLTP to the old car, the MPG on a combined run actually falls down to 47 MPG, which is still pretty impressive, but let's face it, that's only 3 less than this car. We're talking fine margins here. I actually did some calculations. Yes, I had that much time on my hands. I worked out that if you drove the non-hybrid version for the same amount of distance per year with fuel costs at the same price, you would only be saving £72.36 per year for driving this car. Okay, a saving is a saving, but let me put it like this. This car, as I mentioned earlier, is £21,570. The old car was £17,999, although at times you could have it for £16,500 if there was a special offer on. So you're looking at a difference of £3,571 between the old model when it was brand new and this model. So for you to break even, for you to get that £3,571 back, you'd have to drive this car for, wait for it, 49 years. Now, let's face it, not many people own a car for 49 years. And that's where it doesn't add up. And at this point, some of you may go, aha, but this will cost you less to insure. And that theoretically is correct. This car sits in insurance group 28, whereas the old car was 35. I assume this car is a little bit lower because it is a little less powerful. So you think this would be the cheaper car to insure? No. This car is of course brand new, whereas the non-hybrid Swift is now a used car. Therefore it's cheaper to buy, and that means it is less valuable. So I actually did an insurance quote last night on this car and a non-hybrid model, and guess what? The non-hybrid model was cheaper to insure. So this isn't that much cheaper to run, it won't be cheaper to insure, and it will cost you £3,571 more to buy as a new car. Okay, what about VED, road tax? The old car, you'd pay for the first year of VED £165 because it emitted 125 grams per kilometre of CO2, although I must admit that was using the old method of testing, the NEDC method. If you apply WLTP to that car, then the emissions come out at, I think it's around 135 grams per kilometre, there or thereabouts. This car, using the new method of testing, emits 127 grams per kilometre of CO2, meaning for the first year you'll actually pay £175. It is worth stressing that the VED rates did recently go up, so that's not really fair on the car, but either way this will cost you more in road tax, more to insure, and you're not really saving that much on petrol, and this will cost you more money to buy. And that's why I just don't get this car. It doesn't add up. I really want to like this car. It's got bags of character, it's very charming, it's very fun, but if you're wearing the sensible trousers when you're buying this, it just doesn't make sense. In case you're wondering, I did a fuel economy test yesterday. I drove this car on a good mixture of roads, and I was able to get 51.7 mpg. Not too bad at all. In fact, it is more than the official figure. I did actually manage 59.1 when I went a little bit further, although I must stress that was at a steady rate of 40 miles per hour. But still, almost 60 mpg out of a sporty hatchback. Okay, I may have driven like a granny, but still, that's impressive stuff. So, the new hybrid model isn't cheap to buy, and it's not going to be that much cheaper to run either, but on the plus side, you still get a generous amount of kit. This includes bespoke styling, 17-inch alloys, double exhaust pipe, front sport seats, 8-inch infotainment system, Bluetooth, DAB radio, navigation, smartphone connectivity, climate control, keyless entry and reversing camera. Unlike the old model, the new one also features rear parking sensors. There's also plenty of safety kit such as autonomous emergency braking, lane departure warning, lane keep assist, adaptive cruise control and hill hold assist. Despite this, it wasn't quite enough to get 5 stars from Euro NCAP, but it was still awarded with a solid 4 stars. It may have a lot of kit to offer, but it's hard to say this car offers as much value as you would normally expect from Suzuki. In fact, I put up a poll asking if you would pay £21,570 for this car, and at the time of filming, a staggering 87% of you said no. Suzuki, I think you may need to find a different focus group. I won't cover practicality too much, as I covered that when I reviewed the standard Swift, and the hybrid is unchanged. This means you get rear seats that are a bit on the tight side, but not excessively so considering the size of this car, and a boot that isn't gargantuan but noticeably bigger compared to the previous generation of Swift, with a capacity of 265 litres with the rear seats up and 579 with them down. Now, although this car may be a little bit flawed with its intentions, it does give petrol heads like me hope, because you can still have a car like this with a little bit of electrification, and it can still offer a fun, pleasurable driving experience. Does the mild hybrid system detract from the overall sensation? No, it really doesn't. I respect what Suzuki has tried to do with this car. It has taken its fun, sporty little hatchback and tried to make it a bit more eco-friendly, and that can only be a good thing. This car is every bit as fun as the standard model, but your B-road bashing can be a little bit more guilt-free. However, the price tag, I do think that will be a barrier too high for many consumers to overcome. And would I buy this car with my own money? No, I wouldn't. I'm sorry, Suzuki, but it's true. It's a very fun car. The price tag, though, is too serious. Thank you so much for watching this video. I do hope you've enjoyed it or found it useful. If so, be sure to like, comment and subscribe. If you are subscribed, don't forget to click the bell icon so you get notified every time I make a video. But until the next time, guys, be sure to keep up the car obsession.